Hey guys, so now, so this one will be our Cert 3 individual support for cluster 2. So in this one, we have 2 units, work legally and ethically, and follow safe work practices for direct client care. So as you can see, I'm using another of my good old students that already passed. So she gave me a permission that I can use her work as a draft for you guys to assist you with completing your of these assessments, so that way you can actually finish, complete it, and submit, and you're done with your theory and then placement, or if you work in the industry, even easier. All right, so part 1. So it's the same principle. We'll go through the table of contents, found out where our knowledge assessment starts. So as you can see, I did scroll until page 10. So mine will be on page 10. So part 1, ethical and legal requirements for direct client care. So question 1, briefly explain how the following legal and ethical considerations are applied in organizations providing individual support services. So children in the work. So this first question is what organizations are required to do, like under legal and ethical consideration, what they need to do, what needs to be done, and needs to be obviously according to the standards or government requirements. So we'll have children in the workplace. So so obviously the organization would have a legislation in force of safeguards for children. In the process of comply with these regulations, service providers must formulate organizational policies and procedures safely for children and mandatory reporting. Codes of conduct. Support facilities will typically include in their organizational policies and procedures standards codes of conduct for individual support workers. Codes of practice. Support facilities are required to comply with the codes of practice set out by industry, local and national government, and other relevant legislations. Complaints management. Service providers are required to have a system for handling complaints. System should be readily accessible, confidential, prompt, and fair. The system should also be well publicized within the service. Continuing professional education. So organization must include mandatory education, fire training, and may offer other opportunities for continuing professional education for their employees. Discrimination. Strict policies and procedures are in place to ensure the organization is compliant with the relevant anti-discrimination laws, such as policies and access and equity. Dignity of risk. Every individual has the right to be respected, to make informed personal choices and self-determination, and have their own decision, take the risks, even client is aware of its danger to them. So as we mentioned before, that will be the dignity of risk. Duty of care is a legal obligation of support facilities and individual support workers to avoid acts of omission, failing to act, that are likely to endanger clients and others. Human rights. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So individual support workers are required to abide by the individual Universal Declaration of Human Rights as they are incorporated into relevant industry standards and legislations. Human rights, the relationship between human needs and human rights. Human rights are fundamental based on human needs. Carers will provide person-centered approach based on the client's needs, such as spiritual, emotional, physical, social, and religious beliefs. Human rights frameworks, approaches, and instruments used in the workplace. So recognizing and upholding these rights, a number of frameworks, approaches, and instruments are applied. Policies and procedures for reporting, manual handling, and complaints. So accreditation standards and consumer direct care. Informed consent. Individual support workers must provide clients with sufficient information for the provision of care, so the client can consent to something they fully understand. Mandatory reporting. Mandatory reporting means mandate or required by the law report any possible or suspicious of neglect, abuse, and mistreatment. Sorry, guys. Practice standards. There is a set of practice standards for each profession. There are also standards for personal care. Practitioner and client boundaries. There are boundaries set in the individual support worker-client relationship, and both must respect and adhere to this. Individual support workers must always maintain a professional working relationship with their clients and must never go beyond this. Privacy, confidentiality, and disclosure. The privacy and confidentiality of all personnel in the support sector. The clients, the workers, and supervisors must always be respected and upheld at all times. Disclosing clients' information is only to authorized personnel. Policy frameworks. An individual support worker must have an idea of how policies and procedures and other workplace documents are formed in the policy framework, and everyone at workplace is protected. Records management. In completing, maintaining, storing workplace records, individual support workers must comply with privacy laws and adhere to legal and ethical considerations for privacy, confidentiality, and disclosure. Now, we have rights and responsibilities of workers, employees, and clients. So for each, we should be putting at least 2 examples. One example for rights and one example for responsibilities for each of those. So workers' rights is to have a correct wages, and their responsibility would be to provide duty of care to clients and maintain their rights. For employees' rights, to make their own policies and procedures, and their responsibility would be to provide safe environment and safe equipment for the staff. Clients' rights would be to be treated with the dignity and respect, and their responsibility would be treat the others with the respect. Industry relations legislations relevant to employment conditions of role. So workers will receive this information in their work contract and handbooks, as well as it will be available at their workplace policies and procedures manual. Work health and safety. It is the legislation that ensures the health and safety and well-being of client, staff, and other personnel. Now for question 2, briefly explain the consequence of the following legal and ethical considerations that would be breached. So what would be the consequence of each of those? So children in the workplace puts the child or children at risk or in danger. Codes of conduct. Professionalism will be destroyed. Privacy and safety cannot be guaranteed, facing legal liabilities. Codes of practice. The standards set by industry will not meet the standards, puts everyone at risk if not followed, and then face legal liabilities. Complaints management. The words and deeds of service providers are not regulated. If complaints are not taken into actions and no problem is solved within time and manner and acknowledged, the facility can face penalties and can go under further investigation. Continuing professional education. There is no guarantee that skills and knowledge remain up to date. If not followed, continue with updating skills and further professional development, then clients' health safety is put at risk. Discrimination. Individual nurses or carers may be discriminated by age, gender, race, and social status of nursing objects. If breached and discrimination harassments will occur, then be faced with legal liabilities. Dignity of risk. The customer's wishes. The customer's or client's wishes may not be taken seriously. Providing misjudged information and consequences will be also considered as a violation towards client. Let me actually check what else. Dignity of risk. Yeah, okay. So duty of care. may result in inaction that endangers customer or client and others, as well as breach of duty of care will be sued with negligence. Human rights, it was no longer based on human needs. Breach of human rights, legal proceeding will take place. Informed consent, it might be an attack if didn't give the client the chance to get the approval. No consent is considered as an assault. Mandatory reporting, suspected abuse, negligence, work health and safety, and other events will not be reported. And if not properly followed, it's considered a failure to provide legal documents and leads to legal proceeding. Practice standards. The management would be in-house and not properly followed by the facility or workers will face legal liabilities. Practitioner client boundaries. The individual support worker was excessively involved in the personal affairs of the customer or client, such as family and financial affairs, or established a romantic relationship with the customer or the family member. Breach of these boundaries will be facing legal actions. Privacy, confidentiality, and disclosure. It would damage the privacy and dignity of the client. Breach of this will face legal actions. Policy frameworks. Individual supporters did not know how to establish policies, procedures, and other workplace documents within the policy. Failure to follow this will lead to legal liabilities. Record management. The personal information of a client and employees was no longer safe. Not correctly follow recording, keeping, and documenting will lead to disciplinary actions arranged by the facility. Rights and responsibilities of workers, employees, and clients. The rights and responsibilities of workers, employees, and customers were in-house. Failure to follow will lead to legal liabilities. Industrial relations legislations relevant to employment conditions of role. The law couldn't protect the right of an individual worker to help others. Failure to follow will lead to legal liabilities. Specific legislations in the area of work objectives and key components. Failure of organization can result in legal liabilities as well as suspensions of license to operate. Work health and safety. If you do not obey the work health and safety law, it means that you won't take reasonable measures to ensure the health and safety of yourself, your customers, and others. Also, not following it correctly can lead to legal actions, which will be considered as duty of care negligence. Now, for question 3, we have briefly explained how legal and ethical considerations can impact on individual support workers who work in community services and in the healthcare context. So, community services and healthcare providers have in place legal and ethical consideration. These are guidelines for carers how to perform their responsibilities and their roles. That is while maintaining their own right as well as others or the clients. Question 4, briefly explain the similarities and differences that may exist between legal and ethical frameworks. So similarities, legal and ethical framework are important decision-making considerations and are the organization foundation of policies and procedures. The difference, legal framework is determined by the law and its course of legal action. The ethical framework is determined by the individual and its course of ethical action. Question 5. Briefly explain the interrelationship differences that may exist between legal and ethical frameworks. So we have similarities. Issue can be both legal and ethical, as well as unethical and illegal. And the difference could be issue can be legal but unethical, or ethical but illegal. Next question, list 2 examples of legal issues that commonly arise in a support setting. Now remember guys, some of you will have this one as no question, so you actually will have already like question 6 here starting, because this was the question 5, and some of them will have it like this, 6, 7, 8. So just follow the question, what is showing here, and the answer. So that way you have the right answer for the right question. So list 2 examples of legal issues that commonly arise in a support setting. So that could be neglect and duty of care, or misuse of medication, or we could have breach of privacy and confidentiality. Question 9, list 2 examples of ethical issues. Oh, well, question 9 or question 7, but which, yeah, this cluster is a little bit awkward with the questions number. So list 2 examples of ethical issues that withhold treatment, conflict of interest, or relevant to like palliative sedations, or not informed of rights for the client. Question 10. So we, next question. We have a scenario. Cindy Smith is a new resident of Lotus Care. While you were preparing her breakfast, she shared with you how she was put away in the center. A couple of months ago, she had spent some time in the hospital due to a major surgery. During this time, her son offered to help manage her finances. She said that she thought it seems like a good idea at the time, so she signed an enduring power of attorney, not fully knowing the extent of the power she handed over to her son. When she went home about 2 months later, she checked her bank statements and found that her bank balance dropped by 25,000. Another month later, she found that her house been sold and she was being asked to choose a home. Question A, briefly explain how you will respond to the situation described above. So we can't provide advice because we are not financial advisors or anything like that, but we definitely can mention to her that it seems like a financial abuse, and perhaps we should make a report it to the supervisor. So documented as well. B, list 1 legal consideration you have addressed in responding to the given situation. So it would be a compulsory reporting, informing and documenting to the supervisor. C, list 1 ethical consideration you have to address in responding to the given situation. So we definitely would go by responding in not judgmental manner, because end of the day, it's still her son and she still would love him somewhere. She still will love him, so we don't going to be, bad mouthing him or anything like that. Next question, we have a scenario of Joshua Black. Is a resident of Lotus Compassionate Care. While supporting him with his bath, you noticed, rashes all over his arms and torso. You ask him when it appeared and he casually tells you not to worry about it. He explained that Mary, a new staff member, did not know he was allergic to ibuprofen. Pardon me. And gave him some for his arthritis. He said the young lady looked really worried, so he told her not to worry about it because he's had it before and it's nothing serious. Mary is also an individual support worker like yourself and is not authorized to give medications to clients. So we have A, briefly explain how you will respond to the situation described above. So incident needs to be documented and reported in clients' files and records, and obviously mentioned to the supervisor. B, list 1 legal consideration you have to address in responding to the given situation. So it was a breach of duty of care, giving medication that is out of her care, out of her scope of practice. And it was not reported as a breach of duty of care. C, list 1 ethical consideration you have to address in responding to the given situation. So again, we respond in non-judgmental manner. We are not going to be saying, oh, Mary, you are so stupid, or what were you thinking? We just try to explain, tell the right things, and have the discussion with the supervisor. She probably will have discussion with the supervisor, most likely. Now, next question, provide an outline how workplace policies, procedures, and protocols are or should be developed and reviewed. Provide briefly explanation of each step. So we have defined scope of policy. Make sure the range of the policy is defined. Research, plan, and design the policy. So creating the right policy for a certain job. Identify and consult relevant stakeholders, asking advice from the other authority. Draft policy, make a draft about a policy. Reviewed and revised, rechecked and re-edit the errors. And implement, perform the policy in the workplace and make sure all the staff and relevant people are aware of a new policy. Now, part 2, safe work practice for direct client care. So we have question, okay, wait, there could be a question 12, could be 13, or could be 11. Doesn't matter. So part 2, safe work practices for direct client care. As you can see, briefly explain how the following state and territorial legislation relevant to support services impact workplace regulations. So we have a state, territory, work health and safety authorities. So this one will be that requires license for specific activities and the keeping of records, requiring employees to undergo training or certification prior to performing specific tasks. Reporting protocols that are in accordance with the specific provision of the Work Health and Safety Act, national police check, mandatory training, and fire safety. B. Rights and responsibilities of employers. A safe environment, adequate facilities, availability and access to relevant information, instructions, trainings, and supervisions as are reasonable necessary to ensure that each employee and client is safe from injury and risk to health. Policies and procedures. As you can see, might be on a page 51. Or, so you can also have a page numbers where you can find more of it. C. Rights and responsibilities of workers. Use equipment provided for health, for safety, or safety purposes. Obey reasonable instructions that the employer may give in relation to health or safety at work. Hazard manual tasks. Workplace regulations will typically include, so we have to be checking, provisions that will require employees to follow prescribed manual handling procedures and to regulate access these procedures to ensure the safety of the employees and the clients. These assessments typically include risk identification, risk assessment, and risk control. Infection control, hand hygiene and cough fatigue, the use of personal protective equipment, so PPE, the safe use and disposal of sharps, routine environmental cleaning, incorporate of safe practices for handling blood, body fluids, and secretions, as well as excretions. So we would be using the spill kit for those. Next question, briefly explain how the following state and territorial legislations relevant to support services impact codes of practice. So A, state and territorial work health and safety authorities. So this one would be, this one actually should be, so yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We skipped that one. I think the next one, how many? No, it's the same one. Okay. So for this one, we would have so safety authorities approve codes of practice to have a legal effect in jurisdiction. There. So that will be Work Health and Safety Authorities approved codes of practice to have a legal effect in jurisdiction. Now for this one would be, yeah, so we can have adequate emergency services, safe equipment and machinery, safe entry and exit from workplace, safe work environment, appropriate safe equipment. You could have that there. Also, making sure that organization has an implement process to comply with their duties and obligations. So I'll put that one here. Make sure that organization has and implement process for complying with their duties and obligations. Okay. Now, rights and responsibilities of workers. So, yeah, that will be leave entitlements, protection from discrimination, sexual harassment, right to work and safe environment, employee responsibilities include but are not limited to take reasonable care of the health and safety of others, and following policies and procedures of the workplace. Hazard manual tasks. So this one would be, yes, this one is more for the other one though, the other next question. So, we have for this one, actually, it doesn't. Like it's not, I'm not saying it's wrong, but not as a codes of conduct. So it will be specific codes of practice. Yes. Relevant just annual tasks are developed in different states and territories. And it could be, you know, those could be the sprains, muscle aches, shoulder, back, shoulder pains, dislocations, and so on. There you go. Now for infection control, so we would need to have training management. So we incident reporting 100%, but also here we need to have standards and guidelines. We need to following the standards and guidelines for residential aged support services. So then we have instant reporting mechanisms which are used and act upon equipment fit for the purpose intended, well maintained, and staff trained in its use, managing staff involvement in identifying and resolving the infection and control risks. And then we have a last one. So briefly explain how the following state and territorial legislations relevant to support services impact industry standards. So those ones would be the industry standards for authorities put in place industry standards that would address the risk of work for the support workers. This includes, but it is not limited. So transferring people safely from bed to chair, toilet to bath, or vice versa, repositioning people in bed, and assisting people who have fallen. B, so rights and responsibilities of employees. So examples of employee rights included, but is not limited. So the rights would be expected loyalty from employees, expected reasonable care to be taken by all employees, expected employees to accountable for money or resources in their care. Examples of employee responsibilities included, but are not limited to providing. So the responsibilities would be providing adequate facilities, safe environment, safe entry and exit. Right. Next one, rights and responsibilities of workers. So employees' rights and so rights would be leave entitlement, protection from discrimination, a right to work in a safe environment. Our responsibilities of workers: take reasonable care of health and safety of others, report any unsafe practices, accidents, or injuries, and following policies and procedures. Hazard manual tasks. So that one would be your manual handling again. So that would go to the following employees. Policies and procedures have been developed to minimize or eliminate the health and safety risk caused by hazardous manual handlings, slips, trips, and falls. So these ones would be for the transferring people safely from in and out of bed, toilet, post-fall, assisting post-fall, and repositioning. Infection control, incident reporting mechanisms which are used in acted upon equipment fit purpose in this industry. So with this one, we would be having policies and procedures to follow. Policies and procedures to follow. Yeah. Follow. And also the Australian guidelines for prevention and control of infection in healthcare. Oh, actually, that's one word. Health. Okay. And then, yeah, trend in use, you can use that management and staff involvement, identification, resolving infections, control risk. All right. Now, these ones would be on page 77 in the learner guidebook. Identify the following safety signs by matching them to their correct meaning. Choose your answers from the drop-down list provided. So if you're doing it online, drop-down list, it would show you all these, so you choose the right ones. Otherwise, you just write them. So A is biohazard, B is toxic, C is first aid, D, wear mask, E, wear gloves, F, defibrillator, G, emergency exit, H, radioactive material, I, disability parking, J, infection substances, K, no sharps, and L, sharp edges. Now, question, which of the following definitions best explain the meaning of hazard? So it would be your A hazard is anything that has the potential to cause injury or illness. Then for question 18, we have consider a typical super facility. So for A, identify 3 examples of hazards commonly found in super facilities. So we need to have 1 specific hazard related to manual task, 1 to infection control, and 1 general personal safety. B, then we need to list 2 possible effects that may, harmful effects that may caused by each of the hazards. And then C, we need to list 2 strategies to minimize the risk for each. So hazard could be so liquid on the floor. So it will be like a, injury. So possible harmful effect would be injury due to fall, and perhaps we can break some bones or something. We can hurt ourselves through the fall, so broken bones or tears, scratches, bruises. So that will be the harmful effect. The strategies to minimize this would be clean the liquid or mop it and put a sign there. Simple. Next hazard would be blood on the sheet. So that would be possible harmful effects. We could have the transfer the let's say disease or something, or contaminating the disease, so getting sick or spreading it. And strategies to minimize this risk, so if we wear a PPE, wash hands. Now we could have broken electrical appliance, yes, or we could have so another one with the manual handling task would be more likely, let's say, transferring client to the chair. So the hazard could be the client can get hurt, we can get hurt. Strategies to minimize that risk would be having 2 staff members and using appropriate equipment. So I'll put that here. Transfer client to chair. Now that could be client can hurt or staff can get hurt. And how we could do that? So 2 staff assist and use appropriate equipment. Okay. So that will be your 3rd one for manual handling. Question 19. Oh, well, okay, maybe not 19. You will be a different one. As I said, the numbering could be 17, could be 19. Just, yeah, follow the question. So briefly outline the typical workplace procedures for hazard identification. So that would be incident reports and investigation where possible, work health and safety discussions at staff meetings. That also would become under occupational health and safety, so OHC. Monthly review of data, regular workplace inspections, informal observations, and hazard identification reports completed by staff. Which of the following statements describes the responsibilities of support recipients relevant to safety consideration in a home-based environment? So that would be A, participating in safe assessments of their home, B, ensuring their pets are controlled during service provision, and E, providing cleaning equipment that is suitable and well maintained. Next question, which of the following statements describes the rights of clients relevant to safety consideration in a home-based environment? So that will be A, to receive reliable, coordinated, safe, quality care and service which are appropriate to clients' access needs. C, to be treated without exploitation, abuse, discrimination, harassment, or neglect. And D, to receive care without being obligated to feel grateful to those providing my care. Next question. Which of the following statements describes the responsibilities of an individual support worker is relevant to safety consideration in a home-based environment? So A, clearly communicate and understand what services are to be provided to the client. B, assess additional service before being performed and report to supervisor. And E, review an activity that may have changed to ensure the controls are still working or need to be altered within the scope of responsibility. And next question, which of the following statements describes the rights of an individual support worker relevant to safety consideration in a home-based environment? So A, have policies and procedures in place for reporting risks, hazards. C, be provided with relevant work health and safety trainings. And D, have a regular workplace risk assessments conducted. Next question, list 3 examples of basic home fire safety considerations when working in a home-based environment. So we check smoke alarms, prepare or revise fire escapes plans, install special alarms for hearing impairment. So something with the live recording. And next question, identify at least 2 high-risk groups in support services. So that could be people over the age 65, people with disabilities, people with mental health illnesses, also children, you know, suppose, people with dementia and the mental health, but specifically with dementia. Next question, refer to your response in previous question. Briefly explain fire safety consideration for individual support workers working with high-risk groups in a home-based environment. So always be alert of any potential fire. Don't overload PowerPoints. Regular mandatory fire trainings and drills, please. Next question, name 3 behaviors that may contribute to fire injuries and fatalities when working in a home care environment. So the very old, people with disability may depend on others for their safety and escape. The very old or people with disability may have forgetful tendencies, which may result in a fire accidents and injuries. And C, the very old and or people with disability may have a diminished dexterity, which may lead to fire-related accidents. Next question, complete the table below by outlining the prescribed placements, installations, and maintenance of smoke alarms in the home. So for state and territory, we are in Queensland, you will write Queensland. What are the legal responsibilities of homeowners to install working smoke alarms in their homes? As part of the building process, smoke alarms installed must be as required by the National Construction Code or Building Code of Australia. Smoke alarm must be less than 10 years old, hardware or powered by non-removable 10-year battery, and operated when tested. So yes, you know. What else I have? Do I have anything extra here? Oh yeah, and the smoke alarm must comply with the Australian standards 37861993. That's the code. So you can have that one there. What is the prescribed placement of smoke alarms within a house? So the smoke alarms must be installed in every bedroom, in the hallways that connect bedrooms. What are the testing and maintenance requirements for smoke alarms? So once a month to test smoke alarms batteries by pressing and holding the test with them for 5 seconds. Every 6 months to vacuum, dust, and ensure smoke can easily, oh actually that would be yearly. You can have that yearly. The vacuum dust off, so that's actually, you can have it yearly. Also every year it needs to be replaced batteries, and after 10 years it needs to be changed. Now list 3 examples of risks to individual support workers' personal safety when working in a home-based environment. So manual handling injuries, assault, trip, slip, or fall. List 3 common sources of infection and ways to minimize the transfer of infection within the support facility. So we can have an opening in the body contaminating the hands or materials. So for that, we would wear PPE or wash hands. Blood to blood contact, again, wear PPE, wash hands. Inhaling airborne organisms, PPE, wash hands, and treating all potential infection substances appropriately. The next question. The statement below describes the fundamentals of the musculoskeletal systems. Fill in the missing words to make the paragraph correct. Choose your answers from the drop-down list. So again, if you have a drop-down list, you choose the correct answer. Otherwise, those ones, a paper-based, we need to write it down. So the back has 4 natural curves. The spine has 24 bones. C, discs between the vertebrae absorb shock. The muscles and joints at the back receives the least strain in upright posture, which maintains the natural curves. And the last one, these natural curves should be maintained in order to prevent back disorder. Next question. List 2 examples of practices to minimize musculoskeletal injuries to self as an individual support worker and to clients. So we have no lifting policy, good posture, use leg strength when lifting, or equipment, or to staff members. You could put. Next question, consider a typical support facilities and answer the questions that follow. So A, list 2 examples of emergency procedures typically implemented in support facilities. So that would be, let's say you can have fire emergency procedures, or you can have leaking gas, yeah? Or you can have a disaster emergency or disaster procedures. And then list 2 examples of work health and safety policies and procedures typically implemented in the support facilities. So briefly describe work health and safety policies and procedures that you have identified. So reporting safety to help identify health and safety issues, why they occurred and how to fix them. And health in a safe environment by creating it together to have a safe and healthy work environment that is good for worker health, safety, and well-being, businesses, sustainability, and the economy. Oh, pardon me. Okay, then now we have a practical assessments. So we go to the case study. So we have a first case study of Anna Bentley. So this is Anna and her daughter Julia. Anna is 82-year-old and has been resident of Lotus Compassion Care for 2 years. Julia is Anna's only child. Although Julia did not like the idea of her mother living in a home, Anna convinced Julia that it was the best for both of them. Julia is 36-year-old and has never been married, and I believe that she is the only reason why Julia has not settled down yet. And I believe her daughter shouldn't be spending all of her free time taking care of her. She wants Julia to live a life of her own. Apart from Anna's arthritis, which makes it difficult to her to move around, Anna's mind and body are very healthy for her age. So for scenario 1, we have Anna has been recently diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. Having caught the cancer at an early stage, the doctor advised Anna to consider having a mastectomy and chemotherapy. Anna refused the surgery and treatment, fearing how risky and difficult it will be at her age. Anna made arrangements to make sure she will be ready if her condition worsens. Although she has never needed a substitute decision maker, Anna appointed her sister-in-law Cynthia as her SDMI should one be needed. Anna also signed a refusal of treatment certificate and Advance Care Directive, which includes do not resist the order. Anna has asked the center and her sister not to tell Julia now of her cancer and her decision not to have the treatment. Rose, an individual support worker, has been providing care for Anna since she moved to the center. She has become really good friends with both Anna and Julia. She thinks Anna is making a mistake by not taking the treatment. Question 1. Identify 2 potential ethical dilemmas that Rose might encounter in the given scenario. So Rose does not respect Anna's decisions by forcing Anna to get a treatment. Also, Rose interferes with Anna's family matters. So she's interfering into the personal sort of space. Scenario 2, Rose learned that she was included in Anna's will. In the event of Anna's death, Rose will be receiving a monetary token of gratitude for her services. Rose is currently going through a financial crisis and thinks the money she will receive from Anna will help her considerably. She decides that she will find a way to make Anna have the surgery and the treatment. She believes her decision to do this is justified because she really believes that Anna has a good chance of beating the cancer. And in case Anna does not make it through the surgery or the chemotherapy, then she will be able to receive the money from Anna. Very strange situation. So question 2, identify the conflict of interest in the given scenario. So it's a personal motive, which includes the money that is involved there for Rose from the will. And Rose decides Anna's decision even when Anna does not want to get a treatment. So she's deciding on Anna's decision. So she's really wanting to make Anna to go through the treatment. Scenario 3, Rose told you about her condition, the money she will receive from Anna's will, and the financial struggles she's currently having. Rose plans to tell Julia about Anna's condition and convince her to talk to Anna and convince her to have the surgery and chemotherapy. Rose asks you for advice. So our advice, guys, what advice will you give to Rose? It's not right It's against Anna's wishes about getting treatment, and do not tell Julia about her illness because that's breaching of privacy and confidentiality, breaching of duty of care, and disrespecting someone's wishes and their decisions. Question 4, identify 1 potential and 1 actual breach described in the given scenario. So the potential breach, Rose is planning to inform Julia about her mother's condition. The actual breach is Rose informed the other carer, so you, about Anna's decision and the treatments and what's happening. So she actually breached already the privacy and confidentiality when she started telling you about Anna's conditions and decisions. Now for the role play task, again, what we said before, you can have a script written down, or you can do a video recording, or you can just do a voice recording. And these ones should be based on the previous scenario. So you have Rose telling you what she wants to do, and you as a carer, you need to inform her what why she shouldn't do it, what she shouldn't, like just period. Don't do it. It's not, it's unethical, it's illegal. You can make it all these things, how bad it is, because that it's very bad. Okay, scenario 4. Despite your advice, Rose decides to go through with her plan, not knowing how Julia found out about her condition, and files a complaint against Lotus Compassionate Care for breach of privacy and confidentiality. Lotus has launched a full investigation to determine who provided Julia with the confidential information. Now, there is a few things, guys. When you get employed by anyone, doesn't matter where you are, who you work for, what industry it is, everyone will always sign an agreement. It's a statutory declaration of privacy and confidentiality of the organization, the business, anything. So with us, it would be, we don't disclose anything about the organization, clients' information, or other staff members. So we would sign that. Now, if there is anything that Lotus Compassion doesn't have any of these agreements and Rose did not sign any, then the complaint and the consequence will be based on the organization of Lotus Compassionate Care. So they will be the one who will deal with the consequence. Whereas if Rose signed the statutory declaration of the confidential agreement, then obviously it will be her, only her, to carry the consequence of her actions. So question 6, you know it was Rose who breached the confidentiality agreement. What will you do? Report the matter to your supervisor. So straight away go and say who was it, and because you previously already mentioned to Rose, let's say that if anything will come out, your supervisor will be informed. Question 7, identify how the investigation by Lotus Compassionate Care could have been avoided if Rose would not inform Julia about her mom's condition. If she just would be quiet and just do her job. Question 8, review the Lotus Compassionate Care policies and procedures. So if you can click on it and you can read on it. Otherwise, I can tell you that there is no. Are there any provisions or protocols regarding what must be done when an employee breaches the client's confidentiality? No, they have nothing. So now we need to write question 9, create an email to your supervisor. Suggest 2 protocols for Lotus Compassionate Care on what to do should a scenario like Rose happen again. So we can have Rachel Alcott, that's the email, subject, breach of confidentiality, and then it could be the message. Dear Rachel, I would like to inform you about some suggestions towards Lotus Compassionate Care protocol for confidentiality and its breach. These suggestions that I will mention can assist with methods and consequences for the breach of confidentiality. Providing extra information how important confidentiality is that can be achieved on regular occasions such as meetings, mandatory trainings, and one-on-one appraisals. Depending on the severity of the breach of confidentiality, that could be resolved with disciplinary actions, written in-person apology. Further, they could be compensations and legal actions taken to the claim damages of severe breach of confidentiality, as we know. Thank you for your time and further advice. Kind regards, your name. Case study 2, case study of Dennis. So, looking at this picture, Dennis Carl has been a resident of Lotus Compassionate Care for over a year. Dennis has arthritis, which makes it difficult for him to move around. He is 72-year-old. Before his stay at Lotus Compassionate Care, Dennis was being cared for by his wife, Cheryl. Cheryl passed away 2 years ago. Their only son, John, was involved in a car accident years ago and is confined to a to a wheelchair. John is being cared for by his children island, where Dennis originally came from before moving to Melbourne 40 years ago to marry Cheryl. Because of these conditions, Dennis was placed in Lotus Compassionate Care. Scenario 1. To make him feel as comfortable as possible, John put Dennis in a private suite at Lotus Compassionate Care. He is given everything he needs, and he has so far been happy at the home. Tanya Pereri, the individual support worker who works with Dennis, helps him with his daily morning routine. She helps him up from bed and prepares his shower. While Dennis is in the shower, Tanya tides up his room. One morning, as Tanya was helping Carl get up from bed, carrying his legs towards the edge, she felt sharp pain in her lower back. She could not stand upright and had to call on you, another individual support worker who happened to pass Dennis' room, to assist her. Question 1. Looking at the picture of Dennis and Tanya, and on the previous page, identify 2 manual handling hazards that Tanya and Dennis face daily. So as you can see, there is no rails and bed is too low, or the bed is not electric, so it can't lift. As you can see on this picture, there is no for Dennis to even help Tanya, like hold on up here with the rail and pull himself up and hold himself, or pull himself on the sides of the rails if there would be any. He can't do that, so he can't help her. That's what they do daily. Now he's trying, as you can see, his best to actually get and sit out of the bed. But even then, looking at this, yes, the posture is not the best. And yes, probably Tanya might have had more manual handling, done better. But look at where the bed is. The bed is underneath her knees. So it's even below the normal height. Now, for both, yes, routinely, this would cause Tanya a backache. But also for Dennis, because he has arthritis, the more he will be pushing off the bed on a regular basis like that, it will be putting too much pressure on his knees, because the bed is too low. He needs to put too much pressure on his knees. So his arthritis would get worse over time, and it will be getting worse and worse if nothing is actually being done. So answers would be no rails, bed is too low, or it's not electric one. Now, question 2, who would be the appropriate person to contact to address Tanya's problem? So that will be a supervisor or a manager. Now, for the question 3, we need to do a relevant to policies and procedures, complete the incident report below. So we will have work details, so location would be Lotus Compassionate Care, supervisor Rachel Alcott, number to make up, setting would be low care, or hostel setting, incident of details. So again, when you are doing this assessment, okay, on the day and time when you are completing this assessment, please report it completed by you guys. So that will be your name there. Type of incident, so that will be a staff. So you tick or highlight or do whatever to highlight the staff. The name of a person injured, so that would be Tanya Pereri. Okay. Now part of the body injured, so that would be tick other, back injury, lower back pain. All right. Now for here, we'll tick other. So again, if you can't do that, you'll just delete the square, put cross there, or highlight it yellow or whatever color, you know, like here, like yellow. You can highlight and put workplace injury or hazard. Workplace hazard there. Workplace hazard. Now, response to the incident. So we would have first aid treatment. So that would be your, you know, you assist her, you were supervising her, or call the RN. Then you would take the assistant sort. Yes, RN informed, first aid officer attended. Other information. So who witnessed the incident? Dennis Kyle, guys. He was the first one on the scene. If Dennis would have a mental mental health difficulties or dementia, then it would be you and Dennis. But this situation is Dennis because he knows what happened. He was there. Now, to be specific, so we need to now describe what actually happened. So when Tanya was assisting Dennis out of bed, she felt sudden sharp pain in her lower back, and then she called for help because she couldn't stand upright. Then she was transferred to see the RN for further assistance and to get pain relief until further medication, or, you know, if the ambulance would say, you know, or doctor checkups and stuff and physios if she would have any. Then this report was completed by, so your full name and individual support worker, which day you did it, and signature. Question 4, write an email to your supervisor, Rachel Alcott, about what happened to Tanya and why it happened. Suggest policies and procedures on how to prevent similar incident from happening again. So again, Rachel Alcott, your email address, so you can just make up some, you know, like some, let's say kelly@gmail or hotmail.com. You can just make up an email. Subject would be work injury. So in this one, as a message, you would write, I would like to inform you about recent work incident that occurred. Individual support worker Tanya Barry appeared to have a back injury while she was assisting one of her clients, and it's Dennis Cow. When assisting Dennis off the bed, Tanya injured her lower part of her back due to his bed being too low without any way of lifting it any higher. Therefore, as one possible recommendation would be a safer manual handling for Dennis, and his safety would be a bed that could be elevated with adjustable features or having a possible rails. Also, a further prevent any similar injuries, need to be refreshed on manual handling and have a proper education with lifting policies and handling of a person, including heavy objects, manual handling, and do that frequently as required. Thank you. Now, also for this one, if we have a client that suddenly can't stand up and we can't get him up for whatever reasons, we are not going to attempt to get that client up. We go to the RN and ask her if we can use another staff member and use perhaps a lifting aid that they can authorize. And then the client needs to be reviewed by a physios, and then the physios can say that perhaps on occasions like this, Dennis can have access to a hoist or being hoisted with 2 staff members. So you can even also have that there. Now, a name, so that will be your name and the date when you are doing this assignment, description of a hazard, no rails on the bed, as well as the bed is too low. Suggestions, provide electric bed that can rise, and maybe also with some railings attached. So usually these new beds are actually having rails. Now report it to Rachel Alcott and its position supervisor. Now we have scenario 2. You have taken over at Dennis's individual support worker while Tanya is recovering from her back injury. One day you notice Dennis is sneezing and sniffling. So question 5, according to the Lotus Compassionate Care, should you apply the infection control measures when handling Dennis? Briefly explain your answer. Yes, we should, because we are handling with bodily fluids of our clients. So isolate Dennis in his room, provide PPE, so there is no further spread of infections. Prevention is better than cure, as they say. Right, its current condition, and if certain measures should be applied. So again, Rachel Alcott, your email address, precautions of infection control would be the subject. Message would be, when assisting Dennis Carl today with his ADLs, I noticed his sneezing and sniffling. I'm clarifying with you the infection control measures that would be applied. Due to all bodily fluid need to be treated under potential infection, and until further notice, Dennis will not be participating in socializing with anyone or being part of any activities until his condition will clear up. He will have access to tissues and sanitizers at all times, and his personal bin, which will be regularly emptied, as well as his environment will be sanitized frequently. Furthermore, if his conditions worsen, nurses or doctors will notify and further consultations about his conditions and medication requirements to be discussed. So also you would put here that, of course, the RN has been informed. But if any further, like if his condition does not get better, then the doctor would be informed. And again, thank you and your name. Now for this following role play task, again, you can do a video or voice recording or just write what did I keep saying? Script. So Dennis sneezing was particularly bad one day as he was having his breakfast. He sneezed hard and accidentally knocked his glass of water over. The glass broke, cutting his hand in process. He has sustained several small cuts and one deep cut in the palm of his hand. He is bleeding. So there would be a few situations that we do things. So first one, we obviously would call for the RN, so press the emergency buzzer, stay with the client, make sure that you call another carer to assist you with clean up the broken glass or clean up the water as well as the glass to make it more safer, and to keep eye on other members so other clients won't come into the room unnecessarily. Also, we need to check so we would put a pressure on we would put a cloth over the client's hand. Even if there is a visible glass, you can, I suppose, maybe rinse it off with the water, but you are not going to attempt anything with that injuries because that would be the RN. They would have it tweezers. They would try to take little bits of pieces if there is any broken glass, but you just pretty much put a cloth over that, put a little bit of a pressure so it's not bleeding as heavily. Also, we need to make sure we know our clients. Is this client on blood thinners? So obviously that client would be prone to bleed more. So straight away the RN would call ambulance. They need to go straight away to ambulance. But she still would come and provide a basic first aid care. Now, two types of clients. One client that can handle blood anytime, does not care, so they can hold on to the cloth while you can maybe clean up the glass to, for other safety. Another types of clients that they smell or see a blood and they start fainting. So please make sure you will reposition the client or will move the client somewhere safe, that they do not collapse on the floor. If anything, they might put if they are in a recliner chair, you put the feet up and recline them a little bit back. If they are near the bed, you transfer them to the bed. So if they collapse, they are safely lying on the bed. And always report and document what you actually witness. Now we have project 1, identify legal requirements and ethical responsibilities. So for task 1, we have reviewed the different legal requirements that apply to individual support workers. Select 3 that you find most useful and relevant to your role as an individual support worker. Complete the table below. So as you can see, we can have, these ones actually should be separated. So those would be the 3. Flu and COVID vaccines, police check, blue and yellow card. But also you've got extra here as well. So if you want to put it like this, so you put it like that, how does this requirement apply to us? So everyone working in facility need to make sure that they are safe for all clients. The clients are looked after safely by the carers, supervised and unsupervised. So that's why you would have those ones. And the source would be a Queensland Health websites. So it would be police, Queensland Health Police Department, Queensland Health Department, or NDIS NDIS websites. So you could actually spread those as your 3s, and then obviously flu vaccines would be to protect you and your clients. Police check would be that you are non-criminal and you are safe to work with others. And blue and yellow card would be that you are so police check would be that you can work safely supervised and unsupervised, and blue and yellow card would be that you are able to work safely with vulnerable clients. But also you can then put offense committed by a person, so carer's role involved handling information of the client's personal lives and other matters, and that will be under Educare Act 1997. And you can also have a duty of care, the client's rights to dignity, independence, and self-determination, to include the responsibilities of persons' rights that are protected and followed. And again, following policies and procedures, Educare Act 1997, and compulsory reporting. For task 2, we have list 3 legal rights of individual support workers and describe how they apply to the scope of your role, and list 3 legal responsibilities of individual support workers and describe how they apply to the scope of your role. So legal rights, so what are our rights? Safe workplace environment, non-discrimination, protection of private information. So safe workplace environment by the facility providing manual handling trainings and safe equipment in workplace. No discrimination by having the fair interview based on knowledge and experience and treated fairly in the work role. And protection of private information to provide information stored inappropriately and confidentially. The legal responsibilities of individual support workers, so non-discrimination, so following the policies and procedures under Anti-Discrimination Act, and provide all care, same care to all, regardless where they are from, what race they are, what nationality. Work health and safety, following the policies and procedures relevant to the role. So making sure that we are looking after our safety as well as our clients and others. And respecting clients' background. In work environment, the carer can provide services for everyone in same way and same quality. Task 3, select 2 that you find most useful and relevant to your role as an individual support worker and complete the tab provided below, and list 2 sources of information about these ethical responsibilities. So this is about the ethical requirements. So 2 important to you guys. So this is an example for this particular student. So you can actually use your own. This student put avoid conflict of interest. So how does a requirement apply to her? Would be no personal interest and not to affect the level of quality of care provided to clients, and being professional, so the carers and clients can feel familiar but still maintaining professional boundaries. So she used it from the scenario of our Anna Bentley case. Now, source of information would be A, workplace handbook and manuals, and Queensland Health websites or Queensland websites, codes of conduct. Project 2, self-reflection. So we have task 1. List 2 signs you notice when you are stressed and when you are fatigued, and then list 2 ways you can cope with these conditions. Now, why do you need to know of how to self-reflect on your own stress and fatigues? So if you don't know how to help yourself, how we are expecting you to help others? So that's why you need to identify how you see or how you identify when you are stressed and when you have fatigue, and then how you deal with them, how you cope with them, how you help yourself to overcome that. So as you can see, she put headaches and overthinking, and she would listen calm music and have a warm bath. With her fatigue, it's a sore eyes and she feels tired, and how she would deal with that would be drink water or herbal tea and try to meditate or have a rest. You could even have that. Task 2, how do you maintain currency on safe work practices and regarding to workplace systems, equipment, and processes in your own work role? List 2 responses and and put down 3 specific sources of information you have referred to. So how to maintain currency on safe work practice. So that means how you maintain your knowledge up to date, right? So ways to maintain currency on safe work practice. So we can have a supervisor's advice or meetings, regular mandatory trainings. Source of information would be your workplace manual handling. So that would be with physios, wellness of lifestyle Australia, or policies and procedures, specialist info. Task 3, how do you ensure non-judgmental practice in your work role? So we can list 2 values that you apply to work and briefly explain how you apply these and keep non-judgmental attitude. So there could be your kindness, empathy to everyone, no matter what happened, by being understanding their condition, patience, being tolerated in any circumstance, as well as what client's behavior can be. Okay, so that could be examples. You can put your own values like respect, dignity, respect, any other what you think would be your values that you value, and then how they would apply. And these ones usually would be in manual handling. So if you would be attending manual handling, you would be doing this one. Or we just give a scenario. So you can have the scenario of client have a fall on the floor, drop the head on, knock the head on a corner of maybe a table cabinet or stuff, and obviously called for help. You arrived, checked for the safety around, no slipping, tripping, or anything like that. Declutter the area, call for the RNs in the meanwhile, call for another assistant, remain with the client. Try to maybe, if there is a bleeding, so maybe try to put a towel on the thing. Make sure that the client, as I said, again, try to know or remember if it's a new client, and of course then you can't know, but if you already know your clients, you would know if they are on a blood thinners or something like that. I just didn't know if I want to sneeze or yawn. So then from the base of the scenario, and as I said, if you're working in that industry and you already had some clients or staff members, some incidents at workplace, please use that. I'm happy if you do so, because it's obviously it's you are related to it. You've been there, you went through it, so you know. You're more familiar with it because it would be your scenario. So please feel free to use your real situations in these scenarios, and then just follow those steps. That it's obviously the guide that will tell you. So first one, we would have workplace policies and procedures for work health and safety requirements used in the scenario. So that would be inform the RN, call for assistance, keep client calm, reassure client, apply pressure on the wound or stop, slow down bleeding. Check for other injuries, skin tears, which to keep a skin moist. Do not let dry, as we would know. If we can't put the skin back, because the RN would do it, but we want to make sure that the skin tear, the rolled up skin, is moist. So we would put a wet cloth or something over that skin tear to keep it moist, so that way the RN can put the skin back where it's supposed to be. Risk assessment outcomes used in the scenario. So you could have asked the client if they can tell you what happened or how did it happen, to make sure client will be able to respond. Is the client losing consciousness? So if they would be, or the client loses the consciousness, please make sure you will check on the time, what time it was, and that way they know for how long he was or she was unconscious. Maintain client safety and comfort as much as possible until RN arrives. Now for PPE relevant to the workplace and job role, so that would be a very appropriate PPE, so mask, gloves, and gown. Check for any other clients walking around to touch any surrounding affected blood spill. So we would try to actually clean. So the other colleague would actually bring the blood spill kit and start cleaning if possible. So that will be used spill kit on the floor to clean, and hand hygiene. Also, you can have or sanitize, the area if handles and stuff. Now, incident injury reported. So status would be individual super worker, the date when you are doing it, who was it? So did it happen to student, client, volunteer? Who was it? You know. Details of injured person. So that could be, you know, so you can make up those names. So make it up, guys. And make up the numbers. Was it a female, male? The date of birth, you can make it up. Address, you can leave Lotus Compassionate Care. Details of witness, so that will be your details, as well as the as the make up the addresses and your name. So you need to have your name there as well, because you're the witness as well. So you can have second witness, but definitely there need to be your name. Okay. The details of incident, accident. So when did it happen? What time it happened? Active, engaged. So what the client was doing, or student was doing, or who was doing what was doing. Incident. So where was it? Was it a kitchen area, lounge area? Was it a dining area? Was it a garden? Where was it? 4, details of injury. So that's when you're following nature of injury. So what was it? Was it a cut, wound, sprain? How was it? Because of a fall? Was it over a trip? Was it over that collapse, like lost consciousness? How? Location, where was it? Was it a hit on a head? Was it a dislocation on a shoulder? Now, what was the piece that might have caused most of the injury? So was it a house in the garden that person tripped over? Was it a corner of the garden wall? Or was it a corner of a chair or a wheel or a brake? Now, 5, treatment administered. So first aid administered, yes. You obviously tick yes, because you were there first thing. Treatment, what did you do? Apply the pressure on the wound, or reassure the client, remain calm and comfortable. Refer to supervisor or the RN on duty, please. Now, the first attendant would be your name and your signature, and then you will sign off. So you will sign here. So you put your name there and then signature. And then when I'm going to be checking it or marking it, that's when I will put my name and my signature. Okay. And that's it, guys. Well done for cluster 2. Next session, we will be doing cluster 3. So we'll be doing that shortly again. So we'll see you on cluster 3, guys. You take care and stay safe.